Hey, this is Don from Padlock Technologies again with another video. This time I got a question about using AD with certificate-based authentication for VPN, and you're going to use AD to actually dictate your rules or your inbound rules instead of using subnet to subnet kind of enforcement. Now, if you don't know anything about using AD rules in the FTD, I did do a video. I'm going to put it up here so you can watch it. You can watch that first and kind of get a overview of the whole thing about using AD in your ACP using realms. This is just going to be an additional thing that you can do where we're going to use AD to enforce our VPN traffic. Again, the purpose of this is so you can get away from the subnet to subnet style enforcement, because nowadays identity is kind of the thing that you want to attach your policies to, because if someone hops to a different subnet, your rules will no longer work anymore. Your enforcement won't work anymore. So what we're going to do here is, this is the lab. I turned off a whole bunch of stuff because my lab was just acting crazy for some reason. What I did is, we have this client up here. I'm circling it. And then we have the FTD that we're going to do REVPN down here. So what we're going to do is, we're going to use computer certificates. We're not going to use user certificates. And we've got to be careful, because there is one thing that you need to do in the FTD to properly do this. If you do it typically how they have in the documentation, it will not work, because the group mapping for some reason doesn't map correctly when you do it a certain way. You have to do it another way. And then we're going to utilize the AD group domain computers, just something simple to dictate traffic. Now, this is going to be any rule. In real life, I would not use an any rule. So with that being said, I'm not going to waste your time going through the realm setup, because that video that I just put at the top of the screen, look at that. That's going to show you the realm setup. What I'm particularly going to be working on here, or focusing on, is the REVPN side. So here's the REVPN setup. And what we're going to do here, we're going to look at a couple things. So we're going to AAA. Now, obviously, we're doing certificate-based authentication. That's fine. Typical stuff. Then this is what you need to be careful for, right? Now, in the documentation, they would say, or you will see some documentation out there that says use the entire DN, distinguished name as the username. When you do that, unfortunately, it will not recognize the AD group that the certificate is bound to. So obviously, I'm using the computer certificate. That computer is in domain computers. If I use a rule that's on domain computers and the mapping is unknown or it doesn't work, that policy will not work, right? So what you have to do is, in your certificate, you have to use the user principal name in the SAN, right? And when it gets the user principal name out of the SAN, that works. So it'll map the computer to the IP, which will help you with the enforcement on the FTD. That is the critical step here, okay? So once you got that done, now we'll just go to our ACP policies. And I actually got to do an update to a couple of them. But what we're going to do here is, we're going to focus on this. Now, as you can see in this policy, permit remote access VPN, we have the outside going on the inside. We are going to go with the destination of DC networks, and then we're going to make sure it's this AD group here. Now, there's another thing that I want to tell you about using AD groups. They can only be sources, they cannot be destinations. So if you look at this policy here, and I go to users, you see users is only in the source column. It is not in the destination column. So you have to be careful when you create these rules. Now, obviously, stateful firewall, the return traffic will automatically be allowed back. So we really don't have to worry about that. But you cannot use users in destination. So you just got to be careful of that. If you're trying to use it with destination, you're going to run into a problem there. So now that that's all set up, let's go back to here. And we're going to attempt to log in. And when you use certificate-based authentication, you will not see a pop-up for username and password, obviously, because it's going to use a certificate. So we're going to click here. Certificate should be rolling. Bam, we're in. let's go to command prompt and let's see what our IP address is. So we got 1 or 10, 200, 1.10. Now I could have did this with the DHCP server. I'll probably reconfigure this and have my DHCP server hand out the IP addresses. And then we have our policy. Let's go to our firewall here. And if you want to see, I do like this in FTDs as well. If you want to see like who's connected in, remember back in the day, you used to do like show VPN session database, any connect, filter name, whatever the username is. Here you can just go overview, remote access VPN, dashboard, and it'll show you who's connected in. So right here, you see the PC name is the user's PC $. That's how it looks like in AD, and that's what actually gets mapped to the domain computers group. All right. So this is why I put this in here. And as you can see, it gives you a lot of information that you would normally get in the VPN session database, but it doesn't give you all the information like you would get in the VPN session database when you use the detailed keyword. So you still have to go into the CLI to get that information. But as you can see, it tells me my group policy, the connection, kind of OS, the agent I'm using. Obviously, that's not the country I'm in. I'm just using a fake address, so that maps to Brazil apparently. And now I'm in. Now the other test here would be is can we ping it? So let's see if we can ping AD, because that what that rule was about. I think it's 1.1. So we can ping AD, right? And remember, I'm using an AD group for this rule to work. So if I go to unified events, well, let's unified events, and I'm not going to look it up by the user, the IP address of 10.200.1.10. I'm actually going to look at it from the source user. And I'm going to put the user in here, or the user PC in here. Now what happens is you will not see the user PC name, you'll see the IP address. Let's apply it. It's going to search through, and because I have that user ID to mapping, as you can see, it found it by source IP address. But if we click further in here, actually, can I add more stuff to here? Let's see. I could have just typed this in a column, but I want to search. Here we go. We'll just add that in there. And where are you, my friend? There we go. So source user will tell you the source user. If you're going to use this, we're going to slide this over here. This over there. So now let's go back and type source user, and we will take down and just filter it down to that. And you might want to put these filters, if you're starting to use like usernames or SGTs, you might want to start putting these columns in so you can just quickly search and see what's going on. So as you can see, the mapping to IP is there, and we can actually see who is doing what based on our ACP. Now, I'm going to show you a command in the FTD that will also show you the mapping. Now, again, you have to do this in expert mode, and you have to do sudo and all that good stuff, or sudo su or sudo whatever. But I'll show you. Usually, I do this. I do sudo su, enter expert mode, and then run the command. So if you don't know about getting into expert mode, you go expert, you put your password in, you do sudo su, put the password in again, then you run these commands. That'll give you root access to the FTD. I wouldn't recommend going in there if you don't know what you're doing, because you could break your FTD. So we go in here, and I think I already got the command here already. So it's sudo user underscore map underscore puri.pl, then the -I, and then the IP address. And then that will show you what that maps to from a ID perspective. So if we go up here, as you can see, I told the FTD, hey, show me what the user mapping is to this IP address of 10.200.1.10. Came back and said, hey, here's the ID database that maps to this here, or this machine here, which maps to my policy because that machine is in domain computers. And that is using AD and certificate-based authentication for RA to control, traffic coming into, your data center or something using AD groups. We're not enforcing it using subnets anymore. We're using AD groups. You can also do this with SGTs if you have ICE in your environment and you're doing TrustSec. Now, in this example, I do have ICE on the back end that's using passive identity to pass that information to the FTD. Again, that was a part of the realm and all that setup in the video that I told you to look at in the beginning. Go watch that, then come back here and watch this. Well, hopefully this video was informative. I really hope you like it, just like I like doing these type of videos. If you want to see more cool stuff like this, or you're a company that's kind of looking at this and want to get this in your environment, man, don't forget to share, comment, like, and subscribe to the video. And bring more people in. I do these videos, not as frequent as I used to do because I'm getting busy now, but I do these videos a lot, especially when I learn something new. Again, I said something about the smart switches and Hyper Shield that I do plan on doing. Just want to get some more material on it before I present it to you guys. And again, if you're a company and you're looking to get this stuff, there's going to be links in the description below. We can get a call, start talking about how to get this in your environment. This is Don from Padlock Technologies again. Thank you and have a nice day.